In this video, we will be looking at the meditation practice called Anapanasati, a 16-step meditation practice laid out by the Buddha as a practical means to establish the 4 foundations of mindfulness, to develop concentration, to establish the 7 factors of enlightenment, and to gain insight and liberation. Anapanasati is a meditation practice that the Buddha taught in detail. Here are a couple of passages from the Pali Canon that speak of how the Buddha himself practiced Anapanasati. The Buddha says, "Concentration by mindfulness while breathing, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit. Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but intent on awakening, I usually practiced this kind of meditation." And in another passage he says, "If wanderers who follow another path were to ask you, what was the ascetic Gautama's usual meditation during the rainy season residence, you should answer them like this. The ascetic Gautama's usual meditation during the rainy season residence was concentration developed through mindfulness while breathing." One of the notable aspects of Anapanasati practice is that it establishes both serenity of mind and insight into the true nature of existence. Many commentators and teachers that wrote and taught in the centuries following the Buddha treated serenity and insight as 2 separate approaches to meditation that largely excluded each other. But it is very clear that the Buddha saw them as 2 aspects of one unified practice of meditation. For instance, the Buddha said the following, "I will teach you the unconditioned, that is, nibbana, and the way leading to the unconditioned." And what is the unconditioned? The destruction of greed, the destruction of hatred, the destruction of delusion. This is called the unconditioned, or nibbana. And what is the way leading to the unconditioned? Serenity and insight. This is called the way leading to the unconditioned. In another sutta, the Buddha makes it clear that there needs to be a good balance of serenity and insight in one's meditation, and if there is not, one must make the effort to correct the situation. He says, these 4 types of individuals are to be found existing in the world. Which 4? There is the case of the individual who has attained serenity but not insight. Then there is the case of the individual who has attained insight but not serenity. There is the case of the individual who has attained neither serenity nor insight. And there is the case of the individual who has attained both serenity and insight. The individual who has attained serenity but not insight should approach an individual who has attained insight and ask them for instruction in gaining insight into worldly phenomena. As for the individual who has attained insight but not serenity, they should approach an individual who has attained serenity and ask them for instruction in gaining a mind that is steady and still. As for the individual who has attained neither serenity nor insight, they should approach an individual who has attained both serenity and insight and ask for instruction. As for the individual who has attained both serenity and insight, their duty is to make an effort in establishing those very same skillful qualities to a higher degree for the ending of the mental defilements. As we continue to study the practice of Anapanasati, we will see that it has strong elements of both serenity and of insight. Now let's turn to the Eightfold Path, the foundation of our Sutta-based practice. We know it is necessary to pursue the entire Eightfold Path to achieve liberation, or even to have success as a meditator. Before undertaking the meditation practice of Anapanasati, we should be familiar with and do our best to practice the basic wisdom and ethical behavior steps of the path. We should understand karma and the Four Noble Truths. We should have the intention to let go of what we cling to. We should harbor no ill will, and we should live with harmlessness. We should also practice ethical behavior in the areas of speech, action, and livelihood. For the exploration of Anapanasati, we will be primarily focusing on the last three steps of the path: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, the part of the path that addresses meditation and mind development. Under right effort, the sixth step of the path, we try to prevent and abandon unwholesome states of mind and to develop and maintain wholesome states of mind. In terms of meditation, the unwholesome states are the 5 hindrances, and the wholesome states are the 7 factors of enlightenment. We will be taking a closer look at these later. Right mindfulness, the 7th step of the path, is a disciplined, progressive practice of giving one's wholehearted attention to the body, the feelings, the mind itself, and to fundamental teachings in relationship to worldly phenomena. The Anapanasati practice consists of 16 phrases divided into 4 tetrads, consisting of 4 phrases each. We will see that the 4 tetrads align perfectly with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 8th step of the Eightfold Path is right concentration. The Buddha consistently defines right concentration as the 4 jhanas. The jhanas are special states of mind that are gained through meditation. The first jhana consists of initial thought, followed by sustained thought concerning a meditation object, and this is accompanied by rapture and pleasantness that naturally arises when the meditating mind is secluded from the hubbub of the world. In the second jhana, the elements of initial thought and sustained thought subside. One is filled with rapture and pleasantness that is now born of one's concentration or undistractedness. In the third jhana, rapture fades away and equanimity is established. The sense of pleasantness remains. In the fourth jhana, there is only pure, unadulterated equanimity and mindfulness. As one moves through the stages of Anapanasati practice, one will also move progressively through the jhanas. So, pausing to summarize, we should know that Anapanasati is both a serenity practice and an insight practice. We should know that right effort is to maintain and develop skillfulness and remove and hold at bay unskillfulness in meditation. The 7 factors of enlightenment are skillful qualities, and the 5 hindrances are unskillful qualities. Right mindfulness is mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, and of fundamental teachings in relation to worldly phenomena. Right concentration is the 4 progressive jhana states of mental stillness. At this point, I think we're ready to walk through the 16 steps of the Anapanasati practice itself. The first tetrad aligns with the first foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of the body. Breathing in long, I know I am breathing in long. Breathing out long, I know I am breathing out long. Breathing in short, I know I am breathing in short. Breathing out short, I know I am breathing out short. Breathing in, I will experience the whole body. Breathing out, I will experience the whole body. Breathing in, I will calm the body. Breathing out, I will calm the body. Breathing in long is the kind of breathing one typically experiences when one first begins one's sitting, especially if one's been moving around prior to sitting. The breath is a bit heavy, a bit fast, and has more intensity. Each individual breath is a bit longer in duration than usual. Of course, this is because one needs to meet the needs of the body in terms of it having been active. As one sits for a while, the breathing becomes less intense, and each breath is a bit shorter than it was. Obviously, the body now requires less air as it's sitting quietly. These qualities of long and short are subtle and relative. They are qualities that are to be observed only if they are present, and are most definitely not to be imposed on the breath. Throughout the Anapanasati phrases, we need to remember that sometimes what we are asked to observe or experience simply does not show up, or does not show up at the time or in the way expected. This is okay and is to be expected. These first two stanzas are simple observations to establish one's mindfulness. The training aspect of Anapanasati begins with stanza 3. This is explicitly stated in the suttas that give the instructions for Anapanasati by preceding the instructions from stanza 3 forward with the phrase, "one trains oneself." However, to keep things concise, I don't include that phrase in the instructions. Also notice how, beginning with the third stanza, there is an intention or expectation set. I will experience the whole body. I will calm the body. This is our training goal. It may not always be achieved, but it is the goal we are striving for nonetheless. Finally, the first tetrad is conducive to the first jhana, as there is the element of thinking about the breath, and there is developing rapture and pleasantness. The second tetrad aligns with the second foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of feelings. Breathing in, I will experience rapture. Breathing out, I will experience rapture. Breathing in, I will experience pleasantness. Breathing out, I will experience pleasantness. Breathing in, I will experience a mental activity. Breathing out, I will experience a mental activity. Breathing in, I will calm the mental activity. Breathing out, I will calm the mental activity. Rapture is experienced in different ways by different people. For some, it's an intense physical feeling of joy, and for others, it's more like reverie or daydreaming. Of course, all of these words are pointing to something that's experienced, not something being thought about or described in words. When the instructions use the verb to experience, it means the direct experience without mental commentary. That is an essential component to insight practice. Concerning the third verse of this tetrad, to experience mental activity, or perhaps more accurately, residual mental activity as the mind relaxes, when developing deep serenity, one will often experience certain mental signs when they are entering concentration or undistractedness. There can be colors or patterns that appear. There can be a sense of clouds enveloping one, or there can be a sense of weightlessness. These sound kind of exotic, but are not all that different from what happens when one is falling asleep. And they may not happen at all, or they may happen later in one's meditation, which is fine. Like everything else, they simply arise and pass away and shouldn't be taken too seriously, though they can be encouraging when they do arise. The second tetrad is conducive to second jhana, as there's no thinking anymore, just the experiencing of rapture, pleasantness, and concentration. The third tetrad aligns with the third foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of the mind. Breathing in, I will experience the quiet mind. Breathing out, I will experience the quiet mind. Breathing in, I will enjoy the quiet mind. Breathing out, I will enjoy the quiet mind. Breathing in, I will concentrate the mind. Breathing out, I will concentrate the mind. Breathing in, I will liberate the mind. Breathing out, I will liberate the mind. I've added the word quiet to the first and second stanzas of this tetrad to set an expectation or goal. The original simply says, I will experience the mind. I use the passive verb enjoy for the third stanza, whereas most translators seem to use the active verb gladden. This is because I understand joy and gladness to be the natural attributes of a quiet mind, and not something that needs to be made to happen. Concentrating the mind, however, is an active practice of deliberately bringing the mind to one-pointedness. Since Anapanasati is inhalation and exhalation mindfulness, it makes sense to me to bring the attention exclusively to the air entering and exiting the nostrils. Liberating the mind simply means letting go of the 5 hindrances, that is, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt, and nothing more at this point. In the third tetrad, the third or even the fourth jhana may arise, as there is mostly pleasantness and equanimity. The fourth tetrad aligns with the fourth foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of fundamental teachings and worldly phenomena. Breathing in, I will contemplate impermanence. Breathing out, I will contemplate impermanence. Breathing in, I will contemplate dispassion. Breathing out, I will contemplate dispassion. Breathing in, I will contemplate cessation. Breathing out, I will contemplate cessation. Breathing in, I will contemplate relinquishment. Breathing out, I will contemplate relinquishment. In the fourth tetrad, the Buddha deliberately switches from instructions to experience or perform certain actions to instructions that ask one to contemplate the fundamental characteristics of phenomena in the ripening of meditation practice. Contemplation requires thinking, so the fourth tetrad either goes back to the first jhana or just a quiet, undistracted mind. The first contemplation in the tetrad is on impermanence. Impermanence means that all that is worldly arises and passes away. And because it arises and passes away, it is a source of suffering. Since suffering is caused by grasping and clinging to what we have, or craving for what we don't have, both of which are threatened by impermanence. Also, because worldly phenomena arises and passes away, they do not satisfy the requirements for selfness or lasting identity. So the first stanza is really about contemplating the three characteristics: impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and not self. We'll be looking more deeply into the three characteristics later. The second stanza is about the contemplation of dispassion, also known as detachment, disenchantment, indifference, and disinterest. Once the three characteristics are deeply penetrated, there's a disinclination toward that which is temporary, a source of suffering, and not self. We no longer have faith in what is worldly because we know there is no lasting satisfaction in what is going to fall apart and cause suffering. We have seen the Wizard of Oz and no longer accept the four perversions, that there is permanence in the impermanent, pleasure in suffering, selfness in what is not self, and attractiveness in the unattractive. We are disenchanted with what is worldly. That is, we no longer are enchanted by it. We are no longer under its spell. The third stanza is the contemplation of what is fading away and ceasing. Remember, by ceasing we mean nibbana, the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, the ending of sensual craving and of craving to become or not become, and of course the fading away and cessation of suffering itself. We do not mean annihilation. The Buddha was very clear that he taught neither eternalism, that being the view of an eternally unchanging phenomenal self, nor annihilationism, the view of a phenomenal self that is beyond personal influence and destined to destruction. His teaching makes these two comic extremes irrelevant and lays forth a third radical position of transcending worldly phenomena and comic activity altogether. In the last stanza, we relinquish, we let go of all that is transient, a source of suffering, and not self, especially the five aggregates of clinging. Needless to say, the fourth tetrad is a biggie, essentially the culmination of the entire practice. Let's pause to summarize. Two essential components of meditation are serenity and insight. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration are the steps of the Eightfold Path that address meditation. The five hindrances are unskillful meditative states. The seven factors of enlightenment are skillful meditative states. There are four foundations of mindfulness: body, feelings, mind, and the teachings in relationship to worldly phenomena. There are 4 levels of jhana that establish serenity of mind. And Anapanasati consists of 16 steps that are divided into 4 tetrads that align with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Going back to step 6 of the Noble Eightfold Path, right effort, let's look at the 5 hindrances, the states that we are advised to avoid and get rid of. The first 2 hindrances, sensual desire and ill will, relate to the defilements of greed and hatred and are the biggest obstacles to meditation that must be overcome. The last 3 hindrances are the subtler forms of attachment, avoidance, and delusion one also needs to address. The hindrances are directly related to concentration. In fact, you might say that one of the primary reasons for serenity practice and concentration is to get rid of the hindrances. With a little concentration, you start to move away from the hindrances. With more concentration, you can get more distance from them. With each level of jhana that is achieved, there is more distance. So one of the benefits of Anapanasati is that the more you practice, the more success you will have reaching some stage of jhana. And the more success you have achieving jhana, the more you get away from even the subtler hindrances, and the closer you get to insight. We'll move on now to the 7 factors of enlightenment, the wholesome states that are to be nurtured according to right effort. They start with mindfulness, or paying attention to something. Then they move to taking a closer look that involves investigating their salient qualities. This involves a certain energy that arises that is experienced as joy or rapture. From this point on, the 7 factors become more refined as rapture becomes tranquility or serenity. Then as concentration develops, the mind becomes increasingly still, resulting in equanimity. The 7 factors seem to have a natural arc, moving from a starting point of neutralness and moving through intensification onto subsiding and release, much as a musical phrase or a good piece of drama or even an ocean wave does. Let's look at how this phenomena of the 7 factors shows up in each of the tetrads of Anapanasati. In the first tetrad, we begin by observing the breath just as it is. Then we investigate the length of the individual breaths. There's an energy and expansion that takes place, allowing us to enlarge our view, our mindfulness, from the individual breaths to the entire body. This can result in a certain feeling of spaciousness and rapture that subsides into tranquility, concentration, and equanimity as we calm the body. In the second tetrad, we begin with rapture, but we look at it with mindfulness and investigate its attributes as an example of a feeling, causing energy to arise. As the state of rapture subsides into pleasantness, we feel tranquility arising. And as tranquility arises, there could be signs of the mind becoming concentrated as we move on to calming the mental activity of feeling. In the third tetrad, we are mindful of the mind itself. We investigate the mind state. As we do, energy arises in the form of gladness. As this gladness and rapture subsides, the mind becomes concentrated, and as the 5 hindrances leave, there is equanimity. Finally, in the fourth tetrad, We are mindful of impermanence. We investigate how impermanent phenomena can be a source of suffering and cannot be self. There's an energy that arises from this investigation that leads to a rapturous awakening, if you will, that worldliness is utterly unsatisfactory. This results in dispassion, a letting go that leads to the tranquility and undistractedness of the cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion that further leads to the equanimity of relinquishing all that is worldly. So in each tetrad of Anapanasati, we see, at least to some degree, the arc of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Once again, let's pause to summarize. The 5 hindrances to meditation are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. Right concentration and jhana temporarily remove the hindrances. The 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Each tetrad traces the arc of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Now we're going to take a close look at the last tetrad of Anapanasati. It consists, first of all, of seeing deeply into impermanence and the 3 characteristics, understanding how grasping and clinging to what is impermanent and made up of that which is not can only lead to suffering. One needs to see that the 5 aggregates are conditioned phenomena. They arise, they are sustained, and they disintegrate by causes and conditions beyond our control. They, in fact, lay totally outside and beyond who or what we are. The body is impermanent. It's a source of suffering when it's clung to and identified with, and it is ultimately beyond our control. So too, feelings, perceptions, mental fabrications, and conscious sensual experiences. Secondly, the last tetrad entails contemplating disenchantment, understanding deeply the 4 perversions of taking what is impermanent to be permanent, what is unsatisfactory to be satisfactory, what is not self to be self, and what is unattractive to be attractive. This understanding enables us to see through the enchantment, the illusion that we have been living under. Thirdly, the last tetrad consists of seeing the defilements, greed, hatred, and delusion, fade away and cease as disenchantment develops. Not only the overt and cognitive aspects of the defilements, but also the subconscious or unconscious latent aspects of the defilements. With no greed, hatred, and delusion, there is no sensual craving, no craving to be, and no craving not to be. And with no sensual craving, no craving to be, and no craving not to be, suffering itself fades away and ceases. And finally, this last tetrad, this essence of the Buddhist teaching and practice, consists of seeing the 5 aggregates as no longer needing to be clung to and identified with. One can safely let go of them. One no longer needs to grasp them tightly, but can relax and simply hold them gently until they dissipate on their own when the time and conditions aright. One finally sees that the aggregates are truly not ours, not who we are, and not self. We can take comfort in knowing that they are the suffering, but we are not. Ajahn Chah, the great Thai teacher, put it this way: if you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll have complete peace. I'd like to end our study of Anapanasati meditation by reading part of the Kimatta Sutta, also called What is the Purpose? This sutta summarizes the purpose and reward of practice, from ethical behavior to enlightenment, and includes most of the aspects of Anapanasati meditation practice. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying near Savatthi in Jada's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Then Venerable Ananda went to the Blessed One and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "What is the purpose of skillful virtues? What is their reward?" The Buddha says, skillful virtues have freedom from remorse as their purpose, Ananda, and freedom from remorse as their reward. And what is the purpose of freedom from remorse? What is its reward? Freedom from remorse has joy as its purpose, joy as its reward. And what is the purpose of joy? What is its reward? Joy has rapture as its purpose, rapture as its reward. And what is the purpose of rapture? What is its reward? Rapture has serenity as its purpose, serenity as its reward. And what is the purpose of serenity? What is its reward? Serenity has pleasure as its purpose, pleasure as its reward. And what is the purpose of pleasure? What is its reward? Pleasure has concentration as its purpose, concentration as its reward. And what is the purpose of concentration? What is its reward? Concentration has knowledge and vision of things as they actually are, or insight as its purpose. Knowledge and vision of things as they actually are, as its reward. And what is the purpose of knowledge and vision of things as they actually are? What is its reward? Knowledge and vision of things as they actually are has disenchantment as its purpose, disenchantment as its reward. And what is the purpose of disenchantment? What is its reward? Disenchantment has dispassion as its purpose, dispassion as its reward. And what is the purpose of dispassion? What is its reward? Dispassion has knowledge and vision of release as its purpose, knowledge and vision of release as its reward. In this way, Ananda, skillful virtues lead step by step to the consummation of true knowledge, insight, and final liberation. And now, to summarize what we have just been looking at, impermanence is seeing worldliness as it really is, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. Disenchantment is letting go of the illusion of permanence, pleasure, and selfness. Fading away in cessation is the evaporation of greed, hatred, and delusion. And relinquishment is the letting go of any pretense of ownership or autonomy over the five aggregates. Thank you for watching this video. To begin your own practice of Anapanasati, please use the Impermanence Guided Meditation on the Meditations page of this website.